Hi, I'm Roxy Sampalo, and today I'm going to be sharing my virtual library with you. So the first set of books I have are contemporary realistic fiction. I have Bridge to Terabithia, The Fault in Our Stars, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Um, the first book that I really enjoyed out of this genre is Bridge to Terabithia. I would definitely use this in a classroom setting. It was an award-winning book, and I think it shows the important impact of friendship throughout the book, which I think is an important lesson. And throughout it, there are no one-dimensional characters. All the characters, revolve and change, and I think that is really important in a classroom setting. I also really enjoyed Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I read this as a kid, and I really enjoyed it, and so I wouldn't actually assign this as a book, but I definitely would allow kids to read it because I think, it's relatable, and I think kids will also enjoy that. I think The Fault in Our Stars, it's a well-written book, but it just wasn't my favorite. So next I'm going to be moving on to the fantasy genre. I have The Lorax, Twilight, and Charlotte's Web. Of course, Charlotte's Web is a classic book. Many students read it, and I did enjoy that as well. And I also enjoyed Twilight. Twilight is one of my personal favorite books. However, I don't think I would use this in a classroom setting. I think it can be, a little inappropriate at times. I just don't think it's the best for a classroom, so it would have to be my least favorite out of this genre, but even though it's my personal favorite. And I would think my favorite from this genre would definitely be The Lorax by Dr. Seuss. I remember getting this book as a kid and I would read it a million times. I just loved it. And I think it has a really important message, with The Lorax. So I would definitely recommend this book. I am now going to be moving on to the historical fiction genre. I have A Tale of Two Cities, Little House on the Prairie, and The Little Pioneer. I think my least favorite book out of this genre would be The Little House on the Prairie, because for me I had a few problems with it. The author is very vague on the timeline. We don't really know what year it is or how old she is, and it seems like it could be written from a 6-year-old perspective, so I don't really think the writing was as good as it could have been. And I actually found a little bit of racism in this book. Throughout it, they kept repeating the line, the only good Indian is a dead Indian, and I just don't think that's appropriate, and it can be a little offensive. But my favorite book from this genre is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I actually read this in high school and I absolutely loved it. I would definitely use it in a classroom setting because it's, suspenseful, comedic, and sentimental, and I think a lot of other students would really enjoy as well. So my next genre is informational slash bibliography. I have I Am Rosa Parks, Who Was Abraham Lincoln, and Anne Frank. I didn't find a problem with any of these, and I actually quite enjoyed all of them, so I could, see any of them being in a classroom setting. Of course, I have to point out The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. I read this multiple times. I read it in school, I read it out of school, and I think it is a really awesome book that I would definitely choose for a classroom setting. The next genre I have is literature representing diverse populations. I have We Are Welcome, I Am Jazz, and The Sandwich Swap. So fortunately, I have read I Am Jazz and The Sandwich Swap in class, and I enjoyed both of these. These are great books that I would definitely use in a classroom setting, but I think my favorite out of all these is We Are Welcome, which is 100% a classroom setting book. This book just celebrates diversity and encourages support for everyone. And it shows that it shows a school where students grow and learn from each other's traditions. So I think this would be an awesome book that represents, all different cultures, all different races. It's a really amazing book. My next genre is poetry. I have The Llama Who Had No Pajama, If I Ran the Zoo, and Where the Sidewalk Ends. Even though I am a Dr. Seuss lover, I read so many of his books growing up. In this book, I actually did find some racism that could be offensive, so out of these three, that one would definitely be my least favorite. But my favorite here would definitely be Where the Sidewalk Ends by Shel Silverstein. I really liked it, and I think it would be awesome for a classroom setting. I have read this book when I was younger, and I really enjoyed it. It addresses many common childhood concerns, and it's just very creative. And it helps students be more interested in poetry, I feel. So I definitely think that it would be a beneficial book to have in a classroom. My next genre is science fiction. I have The Hunger Games, Escape to Witch Mountain, and The Adventures of Captain Underpants. My least favorite would definitely have to be The Adventures of Captain Underpants. A lot of kids I used to see read this when I was younger. I'd never gotten into it until now, of course, but it just was not my favorite. The humor was a little gross, and I just don't think it would be appropriate for a classroom setting. That's just my personal opinion, so I would definitely have to pass on this one. And my favorite from this would be definitely The Hunger Games. I thought it was written well, and it didn't let me put the book down. I kept wanting to read it, and it was so interesting and intense, so I definitely would recommend this book if you haven't read it already. And my last genre, of course, is traditional literature slash folk tales. So I have Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, Little Red Riding Hood, and The Three Pigs. I actually liked all these books. I didn't really see anything that was inappropriate or racist or anything. I definitely would have to say my favorite is The Three Pigs by David Wisner. Award-winning book. It was really amazing, and I think it shared the tale in a creative way. So these are all the books that I have read. I quite enjoyed this assignment. I think it was really interesting to, explore old books that I used to love and, find some new ones. So I really enjoyed it. It gave me a new perspective, and it made me look for, new things that I wouldn't have looked for when I was younger, of course. Like mentioning the Dr. Seuss book, I would have never noticed when I was younger that it had some racism in it. So it was definitely interesting being able to find new stuff in them, and to just expand my reading a little bit, because some of these I did not read. So I definitely enjoyed this project. Thank you.